Karitoki knelt where the freshwater spring met the tide and cupped his hands. The water was sweet in a way the hills did not explain, as if the sea had taught the land a gentler taste. Behind him, the paw slept under early stars. Before him, the flax rustled once, not with wind alone. She stepped out from the green blades as if the blades had been a door. Pania, though he did not yet know her name, wore the ocean in her eyes and humility in her posture, as though beauty had not yet learned pride. He did not speak. She did not flee. In stories from the coast of what is now Hawke's Bay, love sometimes begins not with a proclamation, but with two people discovering they can breathe in the same silence. He asked her to walk with him to his ware. She looked back once toward the dark water and then came. That is how the Reef legend starts. Not with a speech about fate, but with footsteps on wet sand. They married without drums. Secrecy in these tales is not shame. It is the thin space where two worlds touch before the larger world learns to break them. In the ware, they spoke vows the way young people do when they believe the night will last longer than geography allows. Pania told him she belonged to the people of the Reef, that daylight belonged to the sea, and only evening could be lent to the shore. Karitoki accepted this the way hungry men accept terms. Gladly, and without imagining hunger can invent its own rules. Word spread anyway. Cousins whispered. Friends demanded proof. A wife no one saw in daylight becomes a story men tell to test each other's credibility. Karitoki began to hear his own love questioned in the laughter after meals, and something small and ugly woke in him. Not cruelty yet, but the need to own what the sea refused to sell. He tried to show them she was real. A footprint at the spring, a shell comb left on his sleeping mat. But proof without a body in daylight only deepened the gossip. The paw is a small world. In a small world, a secret marriage is never secret for long. It is merely postponed. The first morning after their pledge, Pania rose before color returned to the sky. Karitoki reached for her wrist. She did not pull away harshly. She only explained what the sea had taught her body. When the morning call came from the Reef, a sound humans hear as wind through kelp, she had to answer or sicken. He watched her walk into the tide. The water did not swallow her the way water swallows the drowned. It received her, as if she were a part of it remembering itself. All day he worked and waited. All day the paw asked where his wife was. All day he lied with half-truths that felt like whole ones. At dusk she returned up the spring path, salt on her lashes, smile intact. They lived like that for a season that felt like forever because forever is what people call a pattern they cannot imagine ending. He learned the hours of her absence the way fishermen learn tides, not from books, but from repeated loss and return. He mended nets while she was gone. He spoke to elders while she was gone. He told himself the marriage was whole because she always came back and did not ask whether whole meant the same as equal. Then Pania bore a son. They named him Moremore for the smooth head the midwives laughed at gently, hairless as polished riverstone. Karitoki loved the child with the fierce clumsiness of new fathers. He also feared him. A boy half of the Reef might follow the morning call one day and not come back to the ware. Pania held the infant between land and tide. She sang low songs the sea teaches mothers who must share their children with two worlds. Karitoki listened at the door and felt both pride and panic, the panic louder. The boy's eyes sometimes held the green depth of kelp forests. When he cried at dawn, Karitoki feared the Reef was calling early. When he slept peacefully, Karitoki feared it was only waiting. He began to count the dawns he might lose. That is a dangerous arithmetic in any marriage, but especially in one where one spouse vanishes with the sun whether she wishes to or not. Karitoki went to a Kaumātua whose voice had settled disputes without raising it. The old man listened to the whole story, the spring, the secret marriage, the dawns, the boy, and did not laugh at the young chief's fear. There is a boundary, he said, between the cooked and the raw. The sea people live by the raw. If Pania takes cooked food into her body while she sleeps, the ocean may claim her as fully theirs. She will not be able to return to the tide on the old terms. He spoke of ovens and hearths as doors that close one way. Raw fish, raw kamara from the earth. These she could carry between worlds. Roasted flesh, steamed root. These belonged to the land's fire and the land's claim. The law was not invented to punish love. It was remembered to keep the sea and shore from stealing each other's people by accident. Karitoki heard hope where he should have heard warning. The counsel was not permission to trap a wife. It was description of a law older than his jealousy. But jealousy is a poor listener. He walked home with a handful of roasted kumara and a plan dressed as devotion. That night, Pania slept with Moremore swaddled beside her. The wear was warm with embers. Karitoki knelt beside them and told himself he was saving his family. He placed a small piece of cooked food near her lips. He had rehearsed words of tenderness. He had imagined her waking grateful. Instead, the cooked smell entered her sleep like a key turning in a door she had never wanted opened. Outside, Ruru the moorpork cried once, sharp and human in its warning. Pania's eyes opened. She understood before he could invent an excuse. Not anger first, betrayal first, the kind that knows the body cannot unlearn what the heart has been forced to swallow. She rose without striking him. She wrapped the child and ran for the spring path. He called her name the way men call storms back after they have already broken the fence. The tide was already listening. At the water's edge, the reef people rose, not as monsters in the children's sense, but as kin with the sea in their bones and patience in their movement. They did not threaten Karitoki with spears. They simply took Pania and the child into the dark water where land breath does not go. Moremore did not stay a baby in the telling that followed. He became Kaitiaki, guardian of the inlet, a taniwa who moves as shark, stingray, or octopus when the coast needs defending. Some say he still watches the breakwater. Some say he watches his father. Pania herself did not vanish without trace. The legend says she became stone, a reef lying out from Napier with arms reaching toward shore. Fishermen later swore the shape held fish the way a generous ancestor would. Karitoki ran to the water's edge too late to pull her back. He saw only the last ripple closing, and the spring running clear as if nothing had ever disturbed it. Karitoki stood on the beach until his voice gave out. He had wanted permanence and received monument. He had tried to solve the sea with a mouthful of cooked food, and the sea answered with geology. Ngāti Kahungunu tellers keep the story so the coast remembers what belongs to tide and what belongs to table, and what happens when a person tries to hold a world they do not live in. The bronze statue on Marine Parade came much later. The grief and the legend came first. If you remember anything, remember the spring at dusk, the morsel offered in love's wrong clothing, and the reef that still looks toward land. This was forgotten Fables. This was Pania of the Reef, the Māori legend of two worlds, one marriage, and the tide that does not negotiate.